So the other thing is I just wanted to bring up, this was the pre-work that we had in the event description about setting up big interview, reviewing big interview, and possibly recording a video. Also, viewing the interview module within Career Launch on Canvas. If you didn't get a chance to do this, you can still do this after this workshop. It's always there for you, and it's a lot of great information. So, okay. Okay, so I guess we can get started. Hi, my name's Ramus Gorski. I'm one of the career consultants for the College of Engineering, and we're going to be talking about virtual interviewing using Big Interview and other suggestions for prepping for the virtual interview. Along with me are my colleagues, Amanda Halula and Lisa Dichter, also consultants for the College of Engineering. Basically, here's some brief expectations. So during the presentation, keep yourself muted. Use the chat function to ask questions, and Lisa is monitoring the chat. So she'll be able to directly respond to questions as they come up. And also, we expect you to participate during our practice session. We will be doing some brief breakouts to practice the interviewing skills. And we're going to go over a number of different things: virtual interviews, the how-to, overview of Big Interview, brief walk through the website, as well as talking about practicing with a friend, and then following up with your career consultant. So these virtual interviews, they're not really that scary. It is how things are going this year, and I foresee going forward. So it's something you just get used to. There are a lot of companies that have already been doing this in the recent years. So basically, let's just dive in, and we'll make sure that it's not that scary. There are two types of virtual interviews: phone and video. As far as phone interviews go, a lot of people may not consider a phone interview as a virtual interview, but basically, any interview where you're not in the same room with the person is a virtual interview. So in your preparation for the phone interview, you always want to dress like you're going to an in-person interview. This may seem a little strange, but if you're dressed up, you take on the air of being a little bit more formal. You're a little bit more on top of your game, and you're better able to react to questions and whatnot. Also, you want to review yourself, or remove yourself from any distractions. So if you can find a quiet room, a space to take the interview. Also, you want to try out the headphones or a headset that you're going to use to take your call. You don't really want to use the speaker on the computer because it's not as reliable as a good set of headphones. You always want to try these out prior to the call so that you can troubleshoot any issues. You want to sit in one place. You don't want to stand up and take the call where you're pacing back and forth. You obviously, may tire yourself out if you really get nervous and you start walking faster. The interviewer actually might hear you breathing heavy, okay? You should basically sit still, be prepared to take notes. I always have a tablet and a pen so that you can not only take notes during the interview, but also prepare some questions that you might want to ask the interviewer, and maybe have a note or two about the stories that you want to tell in answering their questions. You also want to have both a resume and a job description handy, not to look at it or stare at it, but to refer to it. As far as the virtual interviews, I always act as these are the in-person ones because you can view the person, you can see their face, you can see their reactions. So the types of the video interviews are the pre-recorded question interview, where they have a set number of questions and you record a specific response to those questions. A platform you may have heard of or used would be HireVue. A lot of HR offices are using that platform. As far as the live video interview, Zoom, Skype, WebEx, and there are other platforms that companies use. The other form is a coding challenge or a design challenge. Any type of industry specific challenge that you're either going to be doing before the interview or actually doing during the interview, where you're discussing with the interviewer why you're doing what you're doing. So basically, how to prepare. You want to review your resume and basically ask yourself, what do I want to talk about? What parts of my resume do I want to use to answer questions that may be asked? So many people say, I know what's on my resume, I wrote it, but actually thinking about how you did the things that are listed on your resume. So actually going through that process, taking some time to remember what you did, because some of the things on your resume may be a couple years old. So you also want to practice behavioral questions, technical questions, and then really practice the length of your answers. You don't want to have an answer that's going on for 10 or 15 minutes. You want to be brief, but also cover the information that was asked for in the question. And then obviously practicing with big interview, and then also sending it to someone for feedback. And that someone definitely could be the career consultants or other mentors that you have that you respect, trust, and respect. So as far as the day of the interview, you want to have a glass of water handy. You want to have your resume. Again, you don't want to stare at it. A notepad, questions for the interviewer, and then again, something to write with. So when you are in that interview and you're asking the questions, so that you can jot down some of the things that they mention. Excuse me. With the recorded questions, excuse me, you want to listen to the question fully and then organize your response. This is a quick mental, just a few seconds. I want to talk about 1, 2, and 3. You then want to remember to breathe. When you're ready, click the button, start recording. You want to speak clearly, follow your mental outline, and then go throughout your answer. When you've answered the question, when you've completed your outline, stop talking. Oftentimes people get nervous, which is understandable, and they keep talking and talking and talking. And then your answer ends up being several minutes long, and then it doesn't seem as clean and clear. As far as the virtual live interviews, you always want to arrive early, check your picture, check your camera in your computer, your audio. How do you look? Make sure the camera is angled at the proper amount. Also, make sure that the camera is at eye level and at arm's length, so that you don't want to be, your interviewers looking at your nose. Okay, so you want to make sure everything is checked out. Also, look at what's behind you. A blank wall is fine. You don't have to show your design style or decorations. If you don't have a blank wall behind you, you can always throw a sheet up there to make sure that no one is distracted by anything that's in your room or on your walls. You want them to be focused on you. Again, dress up. This is an actual interview. So I always say, be as formal as you can be. It puts you in the right mood to do the interview. Always look at the camera. In a regular interview, you're focusing on the interviewer. You're looking at their eyes, making eye contact. What you also want to do in a virtual interview is kind of picture that the camera is the interviewer's eyes. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll put up a little smiley face to kind of remind me where I need to focus my attention. And obviously, it's okay to smile. This isn't a, an inquisition, or I always say a funeral. This is a conversation. So it's okay to smile, because in a normal conversation, you would smile as well. So the lighting, you want to make sure that you are lit from in front so that you are you're able to see yourself when you're checking yourself in the camera, but also the interviewer can see yourself. You don't want to be underexposed. You don't want to be overexposed where you're all white, brighted out. And then also the type of light is really important. So if you can get by a window where you are lit by natural light, that's the best of all worlds. If you look at these different samples, the one in the bottom right is the just right. It's a good balance of darkness as well as exposure. So moving from here, over the overview of Big Interview. So Big Interview is more than just an interview practice tool. So you can learn in it how to answer technical and behavioral questions, but it's also got other avenues there as far as tackling industry-specific questions, strengthening your knowledge of the job and internship search, and lastly, learning about negotiations. So when you do those great interviews and you get multiple job offers, how do you deal with that? And then there's a module on what to do in your first 90 days in a new position. So also in Big Interview, it can help you prepare for not only job interviews and internship interviews, but grad school interviews, medical, law, dental school, vet school, informational interviews, and presentations. So all of these skills are definitely handy in all of these different areas. So next, we're just going to do a walkthrough of the website. When you log into Handshake and you click on Career Center and then Resources, the listing of all of our career resources will come up. And then you just click on Big Interview, and that will take you into here. So on the dashboard, there's a number of different options, including learning, practice, and then my interviews. You can also utilize, like I said, the functionality to upload your resume. And so in the learning function, you'll see fast track, you'll see other options. And basically a fast track is a quick overview of the different types of questions that you'll get. And I'll show you the next slide is basically the lower half of this same page. And you can see, need help with your resume, the AI feedback feature, which is a new thing that I'll be mentioning. And then actually using the STAR tool, you can actually build responses to a number of these questions. So if you come into this page, click on Learn. Like I said, here's the fast track. There's a quick 16 video lessons. There's also a mastery track. The mastery track goes into more in-depth into how to deal with different situations, okay? And there's also, like I said, the job search curriculum, the resume curriculum, and some of the other ones that I mentioned. So in the fast track, you'll see this one is answering inappropriate questions. That is something that a lot of people deal with and they struggle with. So knowing that these modules are here will definitely help prepare you if you find yourself in that situation. The next set is the mastery track. And you'll see some of the same topics, but as I said, these will go into more in-depth, more advanced explanations as to how to deal with, how to analyze job descriptions, how to answer inappropriate questions, the different types of interviews. So there's a lot to learn on this platform. Now, the thing that we always tend to focus on is the practice module within Big Interview. So when you click on that menu option, it will come down and you'll see practice interview, where you can actually select and program a mock interview. You can work on different answers to different questions. You could do interview roulette, which will automatically fire all kind of different questions as you go through. So it's not like you can pick all of one type of question. It really will switch them around. And then the question library, where you can go in by type of question and say, I want to do a practice interview with these questions, okay? So this is how you would do that. You can click on the general interview questions, industry questions, government questions, admissions questions if you're preparing for graduate school, all kinds of different types of questions. And you could also, as you can see up here, you could also do custom sets of questions. So once you go into there, in addition to questions by industry or competency, you can look at these questions and select how hard you want the questions to be. So there's 3 levels: standard, challenging, and tough. So, and the way they have it set up, you'll get different interviews based on different levels. So once you're getting ready to go into the practice interview modules, it will run you through this new AI feature. And in order for it to fully work, you have to calibrate your eye tracking, or the eye tracking software. So it will run through, just take a minute to have you look at different parts of the screen, and then it adjusts based on your eyes and your eye movement. And then this AI system will allow the software to not only check your eye contact, but your pacing, how many times you say like, and then also it will evaluate your lighting and all kinds of different other aspects. And it is actually for feedback that you'll get right after the interview. So now what we're going to do is we are going to be practicing with a friend, okay? We're going to utilize the STAR technique. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this, but situation being the content of and context of the story that you're going to tell to answer a question. Task, which is basically describing what the challenges were. All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully that was helpful and gave you a chance to think about what you would say and possibly critique someone else's answer. So basically, this was a form of practice. And one of the things, in addition to Big Interview, is you can practice with yourself. So you can start with a random question and you can record it. And I mean, it doesn't have to be anything specific. It could be a question that you've been asked a million times, but maybe you just feel that you need to practice it a little bit more. So you can record your answer in Big Interview and play it back and really look at yourself, what your eyes are doing, your pacing, how you are going through the answer, your setup. And also, when you are looking at yourself at the recordings and whatnot, mainly look at eye contact with the camera Were you focusing on the camera? Were you looking away a lot of times? Look at your posture. Are you sitting up straight? Are you slumped over? Or are you not moving and you're so nervous that you're frozen like a robot? You want to make a happy medium, okay? As you were answering the question, were you speaking coherently? Were you talking way too fast? Were you talking too much as far as enunciate your words? So it ended up actually being broken, okay? You want a nice happy medium. Were you using those like, words? So basically, when you speak, you just want to let it be smooth. Get used to it. Be comfortable with how you answer these questions. And the more comfortable you will be as the practice goes on, your communication style and your message to the interviewer is going to end up being more smooth. You won't be backtracking. You won't be going, oh, I forgot to say this. Oh, I wanted to say this. And it will make much more sense. So definitely, next time you practice, practice with these ideas in mind. What types of things the interviewer is looking for. And often having this in your mind, not to focus on and be like, oh my God, I got to think of all these things. More along the lines of, I keep in the back of my head so that I am aware if I'm doing these things, if I'm saying like or too much. So definitely try these different types of questions to become more familiar and get a full idea of the areas that you need to work on. And once you have these areas that you need to work on, you can always set up a mock interview with your career consultant on Handshake. And when you go into that meeting, you can work on areas that you are most worried about. You can work on even questions that you feel that you are confident with and why. And when you're talking to your career consultant and they put you through a mock interview, it may be a question that you feel, oh, I've got this. And they might say, oh, but you're doing this, or have you thought of taking it this way? So definitely try some of these questions. Doing the mock interview will help you to get direct feedback. And believe me, my colleagues, your other career consultants for the College of Engineering, we've been doing this for years. So we've been able to help hundreds and thousands of students do these mock interviews. And although we aren't engineers at heart or in career, we know what makes a good interview. So definitely use us as a resource. Okay, so lastly, if you have any questions, now's the time. But also I want to ask, how was your experience in the breakout rooms? What type of feedback did you get? What types of things were you surprised about when you went to start asking those questions or answering those questions? So if you want to, you can unmute yourself and throw it out there. Go ahead, Angie.
I focused on the background details on my answer a lot because that's the most what I remember. And I got a feedback, he said, from Ryan, that companies like to focus on what I did to solve the problem and to put more details in that.
Okay, good. Ryan, any thoughts?
Well, on that, I had a general question I wanted to ask.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I was just wondering, the STAR model kind of suggests take like 5 to 10 seconds to think about an outline for your response to make sure you plan what you're saying before you go start blurting out words. And I was wondering if it's okay to just remain silent for 5 to 10 seconds or I guess, how do you approach that transition of the interviewer asks a question and then you want to think about it for a few seconds? How do you do that smoothly? Or
so it could be a number of different things, but it just kind of naturally flows.
Mhm.
Somebody asks you a question and you just pause. Okay, then you start. So it's not like it may seem like you are not saying anything for like an hour, but honestly, it is just a few seconds.
Mhm.
So you definitely, it's not really awkward when you go and do it. Okay. Some people say, good question, just to break up the silence. You could do that. Any thoughts, Lisa or Amanda?
I would say 10 seconds of silence is a really long time. That's just, those are my thoughts. Like if you think about it, let's count to 10 here. That's not even 10, and I'm getting really uncomfortable. And you're going to make your interviewers uncomfortable. So I would say just a few seconds. Yeah. Like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Sorry, I put that in there to make the second happen. But I don't know. You could, like Ray said, you could start saying something. Well, that's a really good question. I know I have some examples of that. And you kind of almost have to be saying those words as you're formulating the answer.
I always say label what you're doing. So if you take the time to just say, just trying to collect my thoughts before I start, or I apologize, I just want to collect my thoughts before I answer this question. I'm fine with labeling exactly what you're doing. So that way it's, apparent in that interaction. But don't talk to fill space.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where preparation and, taking the time to really practice these questions. You're not going to know what questions you're going to get in that interview. Obviously, if we knew that, we would all be, champions of life. But like the preparing and practicing and feeling comfortable, getting asked questions on your feet and thinking on your feet is going to help you reduce that time where you're pausing.
Good. Any other questions? Okay, well, if not, we want to thank you for your time attending the workshop. It will be posted on the CMU CPDC YouTube page. It may take a day or so, but we're going to download the recording and post it on YouTube, and you'll be able to access it. So if you have any friends that said, "Oh, I wish I would have went there," let them know where that's going to be. And
Ray, there's a question in the chat if you wanted to answer it. In preparation for an interview, what's the best way to research a position and the background of a company?
So as far as, researching the company, the background, there are a number of different databases that are out there, like LexisNexis, Hoover's. A lot of times I suggest students, Google a company just to see what is being posted about them. And also the Wall Street Journal often has information based on, stock prices or change of ownership or things like that. As far as specific positions, there are a number of resources out there that, and it's slipping my mind, where you can look at salary information.
Glassdoor.
Glassdoor, thank you.
Yep.
You can look at Glassdoor. You can search by company, by job title, geographic location, and find out what is being posted there. Having said that, remember, any of these sites like Glassdoor, you're going to have positive reviews, you're going to have negative reviews. So take it from a standpoint of you're getting information, but as we say, take it with a grain of salt. Okay.
I also suggest looking at reviewing that job description. I'm always the proponent of and saving it in some way. I know internship descriptions can be pretty broad, but typically with larger companies, they'll take the first 2 paragraphs or so to introduce themselves and the role and the way in which the role functions for that company. You can gain a lot of knowledge about not only the function of that role, where it's located within the company itself, but also the company. LinkedIn is a good place to go to. You can just browse people's profiles. I know it's weird. people think it's weird that maybe you'll show up as like a notification that you viewed someone's profile, but honestly, it's a way you learn about what specific positions.
Right. And it shows interest in that company, in that position as well. So, any other questions? All right. Well, if you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to your career consultant, and definitely set up a time to meet with them, especially after the job fair, because hopefully that generates a lot of interview traffic and job offers and negotiation and all those good things. So that's why we're here to help you. And also, if you have it on your schedule, we're going to be marketing our next workshop about following up and continuing your job search after the job fair. So definitely keep that in the back of your mind and on your calendars. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.